tape is here. All right, guys, it is a new month. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. The time is just flying. But it is time once again for my wrap up for the month. So let's just get into it. So, to start off the May wrap up, I thought I'd just dive in with a couple of very popular books. The first book is called Kingdom of the Wicked, and the second book is Kingdom of the Cursed. And these are both by Carrie Maniscalco. I believe that's how you say her name. Maniscalco, Manis, something. So sorry.
I tried.
But I wanted to dive into these books because they are so popular, and they've been on my shelf for quite a long time, actually. And I thought I'd give them a shot. They are YA, so I knew going in um, there'd be a lot less spice than what I'm usually into, but that's fine. I love a good YA. However, I have certain expectations when it comes to YA books, and this one blew my ideals for what a YA is out of the water in a bad way.
Not good.
I expected, high fantasy to the most part, like a riveting storyline to really drive a plot. Um, and I didn't really get what I wanted. This follows the story of a sister. She's part of a twin, and her twin sister gets unalived through some type of magical sacrifice. And she's basically going through a lot. She is trying to get to the bottom of her sister's murder, and a lot of that investigation has to do with the seven deadly princes, which are basically the seven deadly sins. But she mostly deals with wrath. And things kind of get a little wonky from there. She takes a lot of risks, even though she's constantly warned. And so it's not like she's like didn't know. She's constantly warned about the risks, does not care about her life or the lives of others, which really grinds my gears when FMC does not use her brain. At least be smart about things, but she doesn't think anything through before doing anything dangerous. And then she doesn't take any accountability for her actions, especially in the first book. In the second book, Kingdom of the Cursed, there's a lot of spice, surprisingly so for a young adult book. I didn't see it coming. I wasn't having a good time because sure there can be spice. There should be spice in romance books, but for a YA, I'm expecting very little if at all. And that is not the case. That is not the case for these books. And it would be fine. Like not really, but it would be fine. Like I could take it since I already read a lot of romance books with, a lot of spice, but the story gets lost. There's a lot of things happening, things progress, but randomly we get, a very intense sexualized moment. And I'm like, but what about this? What are we doing here? Like it just gets forgotten within the spice, and so the spice is kind of clouding over the plot line. If that wasn't bad enough, the plot is her making bad decisions. And so it's like I just wasn't having a good time, and it's just the narcissism. The FMC is a narcissist. It's very triggering for me anyways. So yeah, I couldn't connect with really any of the characters. I will be finishing the third book, but I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break because the the second one ended kind of in a place that I was like, okay, but I want to see how it ends, especially since I have the two spin-off books, which I hear are really great. So I'm hoping I'm hoping these ones, the spin-off books, are much better than this series, mostly because those are in the romance genre. So at least I know there's going to probably be a lot more spice, which I honestly feel like this YA book should have been more in the romance, like adult romance. I don't think it should be categorized as YA, especially for the second book. I haven't read the third book, so I really can't say on that one. But if it's anything like the first two, I'm gonna say it should have probably been in adult romance. But anyways, I gave Kingdom of the Wicked 3 stars, and then I gave Kingdom of the Cursed also 3 stars. I don't have high hopes for the third one, but maybe things will get better.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see. Next up, I decided to get into a new CM scenic Stunich. I'm terrible at names. I'm so sorry.
It will get better. It will.
Which is a shame because she's one of my favorite authors. But I decided to get into one of her new series, and the first book is called The Witchwood Boys Are Trending, and the second book that I read is called Come Dance with the Witchwood Boys. And with CM's book, I know they're going to be spicy. I know they're going to be spicy, but they're usually really entertaining. There's a lot of plot going on with spice sprinkled throughout. With these books, the balance was a little off for me, anyways. So with the first book in this series, because there are 2 other books, so there's 4 books in the series, but I only read 2 so far. The first book, so the whole premise is this legend with this tree in the middle of this like forest in a small town. Basically, if you put your hand into this tree stump, then you get transported into the witch woods, which is like this whole other place. And many people have disappeared over the years, and they think it's because of this tree. And a lot of people have put their hands into this tree and nothing has happened. But there's a certain night you have to put your hand in, and it has to be on a new moon night. So one of the girls, the FMC, her grandmother went into this tree and came out fine and told her all about the witch woods. And so she wanted to experience this for herself. And she knew she had to put her hand in on a new moon night. So on her birthday night, she goes out to the woods, sticks her hand in the tree, and is transported into the witch woods. Upon arriving, she's in awe. And then things take a turn for the worst because, as the legend suggests, is that you cannot speak in the witch woods. If you do, then you are trapped there. And so she knows not to speak. So she starts running to get out of these witch woods, not saying a word, and gets attacked by one of the boys that had disappeared. Um, and he provokes her to speak, so she's trapped there. And he does this because there are 2 other boys with him who, you guessed it, disappeared, and they need her to form their coven. They needed one more person to form their coven. And so, yeah, that's basically the story. It's just them working to get out of this place and then, trying to figure out how to reassimilate once you get back in to the real world. But the thing about this place is the witch woods. One day in the witch woods is 1 month in the real world. So some of these boys have been there for a couple of years, but that's decades in the real world.
What year is it?
So there's like one from like the 50s, I want to say, one from the 80s, and then one from like the early 2000s. So they're all very, very different humans, but yeah, it's a cool concept. I have to say that. It's very cool. There's a lot of magic. My only thing I would like to say about the first book anyways is that I think the execution was done in a way that was interesting. Um and for that reason, I gave that first book 3.75 stars. The second book, it's it's just okay in my opinion. I think I had like a solid 10 chapters where I was like at the edge of my seat, but the rest was kind of just like eh, mainly because of the amount of spice. I if I have spice in my books, I want it to be just like 20 to 30%. When it starts inching towards that 50%, then we have some problems because I like plot. I don't want to just read, those scenes all of the time. I like a story. So this one was inching towards like a good maybe 60% in my opinion of the amount of spice. But to be fair, a lot of their like magical spells have a lot of sex within them, if that piques your interest. So yeah, I was not having a good time with the second one. I did start the third one, and it's a slow moving for me because again, lots of spice. If that's your thing, I love that for you. It's just not for me. I love spice in my books, just not that much. Not that much. So I gave that second book 3.25 stars. I'm hoping these next two books will turn things around for me with this series because I've loved everything else Sam has written, but it's not looking good. So, yeah. But, anyways, um, moving on. Next up, let's talk about an optimist guide to heartbreak and a pessimist guide to love by Jennifer Hartman. Now, I'm doing both of them at the same time because they kind of just mesh. I can't really differentiate between the two because things just pop off as soon as you get into the second one from the first one. So I'm just going to dive in. So, the premise of the story is a girl who is coming back into the life of one of her closest friends. They went through a tragedy, losing someone they held very near and dear, being his sister and her best friend. Since then, he moved away, he moved back. He has an auto shop in their hometown now, and she wants to reconnect because it's been about a decade. And yeah, that's basically the story. He's has his own demons, as you can imagine, because he has a lot of guilt for the way that his sister died. I don't want to give anything away. So yeah, they reconnect. He's very grumpy
Dude, why are you so angry?
in the beginning and probably not probably he's definitely grumpy throughout the entire series. But it's fun to see him kind of unravel, and it's very clear that he loves and cares for her more than she does in the beginning, even though he's pushing her back because he has so much more trauma than just his sister dying. It's layered more than that. He has trust issues. It's just like a whole array of problems.
There's too much baggage.
And she is a girl who has her own secrets, and it's them kind of unraveling each other in a way. She's definitely a optimist, so she is the sunshine in this grumpy sunshine sandwich, and it shows. She's probably the most optimistic character I've ever read, which was an interesting. It was an interesting time for sure. But I loved the story, and Jennifer Hartman always gives you a story that really just pulls your heart out and throws it into an incinerator, which this one was no different. Were tears shed? Tears were shed. Yes. Yes, yes, they were. It just, there's no going around it with Jennifer Hartman. I don't think I've ever not shed tears. I don't think so with Jennifer Hartman. She knows how to write books that hurt you. But like I don't even want to say in a good way because sometimes I'm like, was this necessary? Probably not. But I did this to myself by picking up the book. But I loved the writing. I loved the stories. One thing I do have to say about the second book, it fell a little shorter for me than the first book. I enjoyed the first book a lot because there was a lot happening. There was a lot to unpack. And there still were a lot of questions that needed to be answered regarding the circumstances of the sister's death, which you don't even learn until the second book. But I was fully in it. And in the second book, we have my grumpy man unraveling at the seams and not in the best of ways. So it was a lot to unpack, but it was hard to read at certain points um, because at the end of the day, when someone is going through a lot, the most you can do is be there for them and hope that they take the hand that you're giving, because they won't get help until they decide they want it, which is really unfortunate. But we get to see that as readers in real time while reading the book. And it kind of hit me in a way that I wasn't a fan of, just because of my own past trauma. But overall, I enjoyed the duology. The first book I gave 4.75 stars, and the second one I gave 4.25 stars. So, solid duology. All right, let's talk about Pucking Around by Emily Rath. And this was a reread for me. I read it a while back and remember loving it, and it was up on Libby to borrow right away. So I was like, well, when in Rome, might as well do a reread because I didn't really have anything next up for my audio. So I wanted to listen to this one. And it did not disappoint, actually. I liked the characters' voices, like the voice actors for the foreign character, Ilmari. I loved it. His voice was fantastic. I love that they went in that direction. It really put more depth to that character by having someone with an accent do that character. But, anyways, the premise of the story is a woman who's like a sports doctor. Um, is up for like an internship situation with a sports team, and lo and behold, one of the players is a one night stand she had way back when, and it was the best one night stand she's ever had, and she left because she had dreams. She didn't want to get into a relationship yet, because she had goals and ambition, and she didn't want anything to ruin that. So she's very surprised when, lo and behold, Mans is there, and ruining all her plans. But not only that, she is feeling really close with the equipment manager and then also Ilmarie, the goalie. So it's a reverse harem. So she has more than one love interest.
You? The more the merrier.
And it's fantastic. I love it because you throw in reverse harem, you throw in hockey, you give me a foreign character, and I'm all in. I'm 10 toes deep. 10 toes. But I really enjoyed this book. It's kind of like a light and fluffy read. It's not very intense by any means. I think this is the book that people think of when they're like, reading is relaxing, because this is a relaxing book. There's no like severe conflict. Like, yes, there's issues, but there's nothing like heart pounding happening to the point where I'm like on the edge of my seat. It's just like a nice, comfortable romance read. It's super good, and I just love Emily Rath. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. All right, so I'm going to speak on these two books together and not individually because they kind of blended into one, and I really couldn't differentiate between the two, to be honest. So the books I'm talking about this time is Apollyon or Apollyon and Sentinel by Jennifer L. Armentrout. These are the last two books in the Covenant series. And I'm going to be honest, this entire series was a hard read for me. I didn't really enjoy myself. The FMC was very annoying to me. She kept making bad decisions that really led to multiple character deaths that could have been avoided. They could have been avoided. And it just wasn't a good time to keep reading about her mistakes. Um, because like, it's this might sound very, hypocritical, but mans can make mistakes in books, and that's fine. But women can't make mistakes in books to a point. Like, yes, women can make mistakes because they're only human, but they can't keep making consistent mistakes over and over and over again that hurt people in books for me, because I myself am a woman, so I find that to be very irritating because I'm like, that's not realistic. But I mean, I guess it could be realistic for some people, but for me, my head is very much on my shoulders, and I know I wouldn't make these mistakes.
Smart. She's capable. She's organized.
And I have many friends who also would not make these mistakes. So, yeah, it just kind of always bugs me when a woman consistently makes mistakes because I expect that from a man. I expect that from a man. I do not expect it from a woman. So that might that might make me very hypocritical, but at this point I don't care. I hate reading about it. So yeah, I did not have a good time reading this book. Not only that, the side characters weren't really developed all that well. So it was hard when all I really had to go off was the FMC, because that's her point of view. We're reading from her point of view. And so yeah, I didn't really have a lot, and then characters are dying left and right. The characters that you were starting to get like some type of connection with die. Like they die. And it was hard. It was a hard read. It was like watching Game of Thrones, to be honest. Like all the characters you love, kick the bucket.
Everyone must die.
Um and there's nothing you can do. You just got to keep going. You got to keep going. And that's what I did. I made it through these books, and honestly, if not for the audio, I don't think I would have made it through, because I just couldn't. The voice actor, bravo to her, because she made the book sound a lot better than what I was reading. When I was reading it, I was not following the story very well, um because I just wasn't in it. But with the audio, I felt better about the characters, not much, but it felt better hearing those characters come to life through audio. Plus, I didn't expect certain characters to have like different accents, and I really loved that about the voice actress who voiced them, like Seth, the character Seth in the books. I didn't expect him to have, like, a Parisian accent, and he did, and I was like, "You know what? I'm for this." So, that was fun. So honestly, the audio, 10 out of 10. If you're gonna listen to these books, do it, because they're so much better listened to than read, which is an interesting thing to say. But anyways, the 4th book, I had read up to 50% of it like a month ago, and I knew I needed to finish it up. So I listened to the audio, and I got through it. I got through the last 50% and then moved on to the last book. And that one was a lot more fast paced, a lot more action was happening in there, which I appreciated. Um, but again, a lot of characters just kind of lacked depth. So I didn't really form any connections or have any strong feelings for the things that were happening in the characters' lives. Not that much was happening in the characters' lives because, again, not a lot of depth for those characters. Plus, there was a lot of unwarranted spice in these books, because it's a closed door YA fantasy romance book. And there was just so much spice, spice because it's closed door. But they kept alluding to all of the sexy times that were happening. And I was like, it's like, I get it. Like, they're teenagers, and I guess that's the main thing. Like, that's what's on their mind. Their hormones are up, but there are other things to be done. And this is a YA closed door. So like the fact that they kept alluding to it was very annoying. Um, so yeah, all of those reasons, I gave Apollyon 3.25 stars. And like I said, the fifth one, it was a lot more action packed, a lot more stuff was happening, which I very much appreciated. So I gave that one, not five, 3.5 stars. So maybe odds be ever in your favor if you decide to read those books. Now let's get into my most traumatizing author read.
Roller coaster ride. Roller coaster.
I read Older by Jennifer Hartman, and it's an age gap romance. It's a girl who falls in love with her best friend's father. But the kicker is that she met the best friend's father month like a month or two before her and her best friend were like super close, and didn't know it was the best friend's father. And she had lied beforehand. They'd met at a party. He was looking for his daughter, so she knew he was older. And he happened upon this young lady here, and she told him that she was, I think, 22, somewhere along those lines. And so they hit it off. They're having a great time, and then the proposition was propositioned. And before anything can happen, someone at the party lets it slip that she is actually 17. And Mans promptly leaves. He leaves because Mans is not about that life. So, anyways, lots of things happen in this woman's life. She comes from a very, very abusive home. Um, and she ends up living with her best friend, and come to find out that the man's that she was about to do the deed with was also her best friend's father. And so it's a lot of push and pull, this story. Um, and it's, again, a hard read because, we're dealing with, the age gap and the societal norms, and not pushing those envelopes, because obviously there is a very large age gap. He's very much a mature gentleman, and she is a youth that has dealt with a lot of trauma. So she's matured because of her trauma, but again, she's younger. Granted, in this story, gonna throw it out there, nothing happens until she's, I believe, 19, so she's of age. But again, that this type of story is not for everyone. So if this type of age gap is not for you, that's completely fine. That's warranted. You know what? You do you. If that bugs you, if that creeps you out, that's, again, that's fair. That's fair. But for this story, I really felt for the characters. They were very well developed, and the age gap. It's a concerning age gap. Like, if in life this happened, I would be very concerned. But in this book, this love story kind of just jumps off the page, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of issues regarding the age gap and the closeness of the characters, because it's all very close knit type of family situation. And but the way things play out is, very organic and not at all skeevy. I'd like to throw that out there, but yes, just the way Jennifer Hartman writes this story is kind of, again, heart wrenching. It pulls your heart out, throws it across the room into a pile of burning embers, um, and just slowly roasted. So, but I enjoyed it. There were a couple of things I had issues with in regards to the setup of the story. Well, not so much the setup, but there's like a couple of elements, like from her abusive home. We don't really get any full closure from her parents, which kind of irks me. But I mean, I guess in life you don't always get closure, so I guess there's that. But for me, I would prefer closure when it comes to my books. So For that small reason, I gave this book 4.5 stars instead of the full five. But still, if you like an age gap romance and you enjoy, a slow roasted heart, then this might be the book for you. Let's get into Emily Rath's Whiskey and Sin, which I had no idea she had written this book. I didn't know this book existed because the only books I've read from Emily Rath are her hockey books, and I thoroughly enjoyed those. So I thought I'd give this one a shot, and I'm happy I did because it was a nice change of pace from Jennifer Hartman's books. This one is an Omega verse type of book. So they're all humans, but the society levels are like, alpha, beta, omega type of thing. So that in itself is an experience if you have not read an Omega verse book. It's interesting. It's not for everyone, but I was in the mood for something different. And I have read other Omega verse books, so I knew what I was getting into. So you've been warned. But I enjoyed this book. This book is about a Omega who basically has been trafficked. So a little darker on on the Omegaverse spectrum. So this Omega's been like trafficked, and he's trying to get out of a bad situation. So he ends up, crashing his essentially kidnapper's car, and he gets away and he stumbles into this alpha who is just like a loner. He's your most unalpha alpha. He doesn't want a pack. He likes to be alone. He doesn't feel welcome within packs. So he just doesn't really mesh well. So the beta stumbles, and I do mean stumble because he's injured. He's broken his leg, I believe.
Is there a doctor? We need a doctor!
And so he stumbles into this alpha on the road, and the alpha, you know, has a very nurturing nature. Um, so he takes him in, helps him out, gets him back on his feet, literally. And all in all, yeah, the traffickers are still trying to find this Omega because he's their property. Very expensive man's. So yeah, it kind of builds on there. So it's like a on the run type of vibe, and I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I loved the growing love between the alpha and the omega because the omega is not telling anyone he's an omega. He's telling everyone he's a beta, because omegas are very rare, and he didn't want anyone reporting him or whatever. So he's under the guise of beta, and it's fun to like see the trust bloom to the point where he is comfortable enough to be honest. He's meeting all of these new people and he's not pulling all of those walls back up. So it was fun to see him build that trust within himself to trust other people. And then this alpha's walls being destroyed by the closeness of just this omega, and I loved it. So I gave this book 4 stars. If you are in the mood for omegaverse and you happen to like Emily Rath's writing, I say go for it. I didn't give it more stars is because towards the end I was like, all right, I have no more patience. I like, they're good, cool. I like need things to be detrimental to their lives in order to continue the story. If things have been wrapped up, I'm like, okay, let's go. And that's more my thing. That's my issue. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Okay, so let's talk about Beach Read by Emily Henry. Oh my gosh, I am so mad at myself for not reading this sooner because it was so good. Like, yes, there's not a lot going on, but the banter makes up for it tenfold. Okay, so the premise of the book is a woman who's a writer, and she's lost her muse. She doesn't really know what to write. She's down in the writer's block hell for the most part. She is not having a good time, and her father just passed away, which is the reason for her writer's block, because she found out that her father cheated on her mother, and her parents' love story is what drives her to write all of these great romances. And since they didn't have the love story that she thought they had, things kind of get questioned for her motives and her story. And she's like, if they didn't have the happily ever after I imagine, then I don't know why I'm writing about. Like, she doesn't have, that drive to write those stories anymore, since she has no proof of that type of love anymore. So she ends up having to go to her father's um, second home that he shared with his mistress, and she has to clear it out because that's what he gave her, the house. He gave her the house, and she has to clean it out and sell it because she has no money. So she really doesn't have a place to stay at this point in time, because her boyfriend also broke up with her and she lived with him, and so she really doesn't have anywhere else to go. So she moves into this house, and next door is her writing nemesis. Like, he writes bestsellers. She does too, but she's always like one under him. And they've known each other since like college, and she's always been trying to go against him ever since he made a joke about how her romances aren't like serious writing. And so she's never been gung ho about him since. But luck, or not so much luck, would have it that they are living next to each other. And, you know, things are rocky. But a cute little book club prompts them into this deal where they have to write in each other's genre. And it's honestly really conducive to her writing, and it kind of just goes off from there. And I really loved it. I really love, and I can't say it enough, the banter was fantastic. It was creme de la creme, top tier, so good. And I know this book doesn't get like a lot of praise as some of the other books, but this book is so good. I loved it. I truly loved it, and for that reason, I gave it 5 stars. And this will be just the beginning of my Emily Henry journey. I do believe that, because I do have multiple books by her. I just haven't gotten into them quite yet. This was my first Emily Henry read, and it did not disappoint. So that is a good sign. So I'm very excited to get into more of her books. Okay, so let's talk about a book I've been so excited to read, because I enjoyed the first book in the standalone series immensely. So the book that I read is Enchantra by Kaylee Smith, and it was good. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as Phantasma, and I think that's slightly on me for trying to compare the two, because they're very different in a way. This book still follows like a game type of um, plot line. So the sister, she finds herself in this magical house with a bunch of these siblings who are forced to partake in what's called the hunt, where they have to basically kill off one another until like one man standing to win this like competition. Granted, they do reincarnate in a way. So they're not actually dead, but they do have to do it every year. So they're actually getting murdered every year and just reincarnating. And so she gets thrown into this competition, but she herself will not reincarnate when someone kills her. So she is forced to basically get married to one of the siblings. So she's under his protection during this whole competition. But in that, they like form a bond, and it kind of goes off from there. And I do love this MMC, and he was he was just so swoon worthy. And the trials and tribulations of this game is very up and down. One thing I do have to say is that at times I felt there was a lot of lulls. There wasn't a lot of action for something called the hunt. Like there was points where it was really touch and go there for her life. But within the games, there was a lot of like down periods. For something like this, I would have expected more of like a heart pounding, what's going to happen every moment of the game, and that's just not what it was. So that was a little disappointing. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the storyline and I loved the characters. And with all the introductions of the new characters, I know that she's going to keep going with, this world. It's kind of feeling a little Rena Kentish, where she's like got all these characters within the same world. She's going to keep just throwing more and more storylines off of the new characters she, you know, has within the same world. So, I mean, I'm not mad at it. I do enjoy her stories and I like her writing. So, we'll see how those stories go, but I did like this one. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. Again, it wasn't Phantasma. Phantasma, if anyone tries to criticize Phantasma, they have me to deal with because I loved Phantasma so much. I don't see any flaws in that book. So this book was a really hard book to read in like right after reading that book and expecting so much. So it wasn't fair for Enchantra. I'm sure it would have been a higher rating for me if maybe Phantasma didn't exist and so these expectations didn't exist. But because Phantasma was so good, my expectations in the bar was high. It was high. So I 4.5 is I think solid still, but yeah, we'll see with the next books. I'm excited. All right, so the next book I'm going to talk about is a book that I actually just finished. So I thought it'd be a good time to talk about it. And that next book is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. And I'm mad at myself for putting this book off for so long. It's a historical fiction, and I have read a historical fiction in the past. I don't really read a lot of them because in my head there's some type of negative connotation when it comes to historical fiction. In some way, I think it's going to be boring, but over the last couple of months that I've read a historical fiction, any historical fiction, I've enjoyed myself. So I really need to rewire my brain in a way. And again, I don't know why I thought historical fiction would be boring, especially since history was one of my favorite subjects growing up. So I'd like to rewire that thought for me and for you guys. If you think historical fiction is going to be boring and you're usually reading like romance books or fantasy books, historical fiction can be very interesting as well. So, but anyways, back to the book. Lessons in Chemistry is about a woman in the 50s and 60s who is a chemist, and she's fighting tooth and nail to be taken seriously as a woman in the medical field, in the scientific field. It's just women weren't taken very seriously, and their thoughts and um, what they could give to society was not seen as something that was important. And as a woman myself, it was very hard to read. This book, though, was very inspiring in a way. I really could understand how far we've come, but at the same time, in this political climate that we're in, you could also see that we are going in a not so great direction. But what is important and what you can gather from this book is that, there is strength in resistance. And it was just very inspiring in this troubling time for women. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Were there tears? Yeah, just thinking about this book kind of makes me want to cry again. I've cried multiple times in this book, and that's mainly because I'm very much a empath. So I do tend to feel things a little more deeper for, things like how sad news impacts people and the fallout for that. And so there is some devastation in this book with a character, and their their demise really impacts the all of the story in the main character's life. But Elizabeth Zott is is a character that will continue to inspire me, and yeah, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. I really loved this book, and it has a deep place in my heart. So I gave this book 5 stars. Honestly, I give it a six to infinity stars. It was so good. And I think anyone should read this book. Women, men, especially men, maybe to get a better understanding of how much women have fought for. And like they're told, but I don't think they really understand. And I think this does a really great job of helping everyone understand. Um, but yeah, so that's what I have to say about this book. All right, guys, that is all that I read in the month of May. I read a total of 14 books, 7 Kindle books, 7 audiobooks. And what a wild ride it was this month. For the month of June, I have a most anticipated read, which would be
Please tell us, just tell us, I'm begging you.
Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry, and this book has just been staring at me in all of its beautiful glory since I bought it like a couple of weeks ago, and I've heard nothing but great things about this book. So I'm very excited to get into this book first thing June. One thing I will say is that June is also Pride Month, so be on the lookout. I will be posting some Pride Month recommendations, just some of my favorites. But yeah, that is all, guys. Until next time, read on, my bookish friends.